All right, so I am here with John Four, the mastermind behind role-playing tips. And by the way, I hope you're enjoying the con so far. Feel free to introduce yourself, John. Say who you are, what you do.
All right, thanks. Thank you for having me on in the first place. And so, yeah, as you mentioned, I published the roleplayingtips.com website, which is now in its 20th year. I started it in November 1999, so I'm getting pretty old. And the website is basically a game master tips exchange. So I write my ramblings on the internet, and people respond with their own tips, and then I share that back out through my own newsletter. And yeah, it's been a pretty cool project over the years that's helped me and a few others with their game mastering.
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't know it was 20 years. That's a very long time. And of
Yeah.
course, you've put out different products as well over the years, and also you've got your newsletter. So let's go back to the beginning because role playing tips, everything that you do is for the GM. It's to help them through various ways, various methods in order to basically solve certain problems. So, how did it all start? What kind of made you think, I need to do something, I need to solve this problem, or I need to create something for other people? How did it all start?
Yeah, wow, that's a good question. You're making me think back more than 20 years, which might not be possible. If you told me in my grade 12 English class that I would be writing as a side gig for 20 years, I would have laughed at you because I was not into writing and I hated writing in school. But so a couple of friends and I got together and we wanted to create some kind of role-playing project that was around our passion of RPGs, and we wanted to kind of play around with the internet because back then, before when we pedaled cars with our feet and stuff, the internet was still not like a major thing and a mainstream thing, and articles were being published at that time is along the lines of is the internet a fad and that kind of a thing. So we know a little bit differently today. So my friends and I got together and we just said, okay, what kind of projects do we want to do? And we decided, okay, well, let's try some kind of game master advice thing. And we called it the art of role playing. So we did that for a few months, but we ended up just spinning our wheels. We produced a couple of articles, but we didn't have a platform or anything. So then in October 1999, I decided, okay, well, I'm going to do my own thing just to kind of see what I can do. And I published a newsletter. I wrote an article and I published a newsletter, and I had two subscribers. It was myself and my mom. Yeah, it was a roaring success. All the subscribers are extremely happy. But yeah, that's how that started. And the idea, I took a template from another newsletter that I quite enjoyed about business and internet stuff, and I took that, modified it for RPG use, and then I published a newsletter and it kind of word spread here, there, and got some subscribers, and then they started sharing their tips back to me, and the idea evolved into, okay, well, what if I could take your tips and then send it back out to everyone? And now we have these cool ideas and opinions from around the world. So I'm not just trapped in my own bubble here in my own head and my own kind of limited thinking. I'm getting these ideas from other game masters. The other thing that kind of spurred it on was that game mastering is a lonely craft. At least it was in those days, where there was no ongoing regular venue for me as a game master to reach out to other game masters and talk about the problems we were having and the frustrations we were having in our games. And so yeah, from there I realized, wow, this is kind of like a cool little way for game masters to connect to each other through the interwebs. And so the idea just kept evolving and going on from there. So
Yeah, and it's fantastic that you took something and became so collaborative with it, at least to start with. And I know what you mean about there's like, different DMs have different styles, and you probably got your own style that you like to use, and then if you're talking with other people, you're sharing ideas. I know as well, you talk on your website about in your group you've got, for example, a power gamer and things like that. So you kind of adapting to different people, and of course you've got different groups for each DM. However, I want to talk a little bit about the murder hobos, which is your group. So is that sort of your main inspiration for, say, your newsletter, where you come out with your different tips each week, or is it just one of the many things that you like to use as an example to help other people?
it's definitely an input and source of information or inspiration for me. And yeah, I kind of make myself the victim, probably too much, of my players' unexpected decisions to kick down the door and kill everything and take the stuff. But my Murder Hobos group is about 14 years we've been playing together now, and so we have our, I would call it a beer and pretzel style of game, where we're serious in moments, but we're also fairly loose and cracking jokes and doing things. So the Murder Hobos, they're not true murder hobos. They are very thoughtful players. They're very smart. They outsmart me all the time. And but I kind of like to characterize them as such. It makes an easy kind of a writing, I don't know, a writing technique to riff off what they do. But another thing was early on, I think it was on N-World, in the early 2000s, I read about how a publisher felt strongly that he should be playing games if he's going to write games, and that stuck with me for whatever reason. So by having an active role-playing group and kind of talking about my experiences and limitations as a GM, that's really easy for me to now turn that into my ramblings for other GMs to compare their experiences against. So yeah, the murder hobos get a bad rap, but I think it's sometimes deserved.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough, and I'm sure there's lots of different murder hobo groups dotted around as well who can relate.
Maybe they'll all meet, and then there's like one uber murder hobo group to rule them all.
Gosh, I think that'd be quite dangerous. But you never know. All right, so let's move on.
GMs could compete.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. Okay, so let's move on a little bit to your actual products as well that you publish. So you've got a good few, for example, you've got a few different trackers for things like NPCs. You've got more of a general campaign one for things like your players, what they're doing, and so on. And you've got things like your 5-room dungeon, which is kind of like a quick and easy way of making stuff. Out of the products that you've published so far, what is your absolute favourite? What do you think is the most useful for you, and why?
It's my campaign logger app, which I've co-developed with a friend in Germany, a role-playing tips reader actually, Jochen Linneman, and so he's the coder and I'm the mouthpiece. And so the problem it allows you to take gaming notes, but it's built for the game master, so it has some features that make taking notes and retrieving notes really easy. But the problem and so first of all, thank you for allowing me to shill my product. But yeah, it was a problem that I had, and then when I solved it, I thought, wow, this is awesome, and then I will offer it to other game masters if they're interested. And it's basically like Twitter meets a wiki. And so the one key feature, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but on social media, if you mention someone, then their name instantly becomes linked, and then you can click on that and you can get all their information and whatnot. And I wanted that in an app. So when I was working with wikis and TiddlyWiki and OneNote and an app called MyInfo and a bunch of Evernote and other things, I wanted all my information to be connected. So there's people, places, and things that make the backbone of a campaign's details, and you want to connect those. You want your ideas to not be orphans. You want them to say, oh, well, this NPC is at this place with this thing, and when the players encounter them, you kind of have all this information come together. So it just became a hack for me to have this app where you can mention something like a bartender's name or a location or the villain or plot line, and then it instantly becomes linked with all of the other mentions of that thing in your campaign log and in your session logs. So you can instantly bring up all of the instances of that. So if you're wondering, well, what kind of treasure did I give away in session 3, or what did the NPC say, or what did the characters say to the NPC in session 6, it just becomes very, very easy to retrieve the information. Anyways, I use it for my campaigns because I tend to be brief, or I try to be brief. Just write quick notes, like tweets in a way, rather than developing complex backstories and doing a bunch of work that doesn't make it to the game table. So I was solving my own problem there, and yeah, I think it's a really awesome product, and I use it for my campaign. So yeah, thanks for the question.
No, it's okay, and I've got my own copy as well, and I've used it. I really enjoy it, and of course we are giving some away as well for the con.
Yes.
So this is where people's ears will be pricking up. So let's keep with that for a moment. So Of course, as you said, it is very similar to Twitter in that you sort of write little snippets of things and you can tag them, so it's quite seamless. But for those of people watching who have not used Campaign Logger before, but say may have used something similar, like say Obsidian Portal, of course it's a bit different because you've got sort of different features, but there is still this sort of tagging thing going on, and there are various other apps and things that use that. What makes yours stand out more than anything? Why do you like yours more than the other people's?
It's orange.
It's orange. Is that your favorite color?
Yeah. No, but it's I don't know. It's a toss up between yellow and green for favorite, but it's just the a color that I've had on role playing tips for a long time, and so we just made the campaign logger that color. No, so what other software does well, I won't mention any of the other names, but different products have different ways of working with the information, and I wanted basically zero learning curve. Like if I was a customer, I just want to go in and start using something. I don't want to have to take lessons on how to go through each of the features and the complex screens, the sub-screens and the sub-sub-screens with overlays. And so rather than setting up a database kind of an app where there's fields for all the information that you have, and those fields are locked into different kind of screens and queries and whatnot, like the more complex type of products, I just wanted something that was free-flowing, almost like a cloud. So I could just type. If I have a train of thought or I'm in the middle of the session and I don't want to slow it down, I just want to be able to type, auto-link stuff, and find stuff. So it's just like a stream of thought kind of a tool. But in the back end, we've got the database stuff happening. So you don't have to fill like forms. Like, I don't know. I don't like filling out forms in real life for driver's licenses and stuff. So I don't want to use an RPG app, my personal preference, where I have to fill out a bunch of form fields and break my information up that way. I would rather just like, I have a cool idea, I'm going to type it in, and then I can use that idea in the future and relate it to other things just by tagging and the autocomplete features and stuff. And it just makes a super fast note-taking tool that is actually secretly a complex database in the back end that makes things come, surfaces fast for us. I'm kind of thinking of like Google, how Google simplified search, because when I was, back in 1999, there was Yahoo, which had like a wall of links under different categories, and it was quite complex. And there was WebCrawler and AltaVista, and all these search engines were trying to create like portals and stuff. And then Google came along and had a box, and hey, just search. So that was like super simple. That's the spirit that I tried to capture in Campaign Logger, where it's like a campaign has a million details, especially after you play a bunch of sessions. These details start to accumulate and merge and get lost if you don't track them. Then your game loses consistency, and then you're embarrassed because, that you guys are in the completely wrong place. I made a mistake. The NPC's name was actually this or whatever, and I just wanted a fast way.
Well, in one of the campaigns I'm in.
It still happens to me once in a while when I'm not good at taking notes. But yeah, I just wanted this very simple solution to just type stuff in and get it out without cumbersome kind of structures and stuff.
Yeah. And
I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
oh yeah, absolutely, definitely. But interestingly as well, that there are other people as well who like to sort of provide solutions for GMs, players, etc. But one thing I like about you as well is you kind of tailor to a lot of genres, not just the one. You don't concentrate on the one. And whilst there's good things about that as well, it's great as well, especially with something like Campaign Logger. It's so seamless that you can use it for anything. But is there any sort of challenges that you face, say if you're doing a slightly different genre to, I don't know, sort of the usual fantasy or even sci-fi?
Yeah, you bring up a good point about that, and I'll touch upon that in a second. But to answer your question, no, it's systemless and genreless. So the cost of doing no system and no genre for a very sleek application where you could just go in and do stuff is you don't have structure. So therefore, it's not like, say, D&D Beyond or another app where the rule, or like Fantasy Grounds and Roll20, for example, where the rules are embedded. So all of a sudden, if I'm wanting to create libraries integrated with rules, Campaign Logger is not about that. But then, so that's the cost to having a tool that can serve anything and basically help any GM's campaign. But the benefit then is that you are not kind of forced to take notes and to build a campaign Bible for your or campaign reference for your campaign that forces you to think a certain way. And so when I was building Campaign Logger with Jochen and we were ideating how it worked and how the interface worked and stuff, part of it was based on our knowledge of how the brain works, where if you remember something, you're not going to remember something specific in the same way all the time. If I have an app where everything is like in a tree hierarchy, I need to kind of figure out how to find that, like where did I leave that thing, or I need an exact kind of keyword in order to get a match on a search. Whereas if your memory creates these weird hooks and entanglements to your experience that is sort of unpredictable. So for example, if I write a log entry during an encounter in a session at the tavern, and there's a barkeeper there, and there was some things happening with the maybe a brawl broke out, and then a clue was given as a result of that, and a little bit of treasure. So I have all these details surrounding that encounter and what happened there. We built Campaign Logger so that you could do a search, and you could search like tavern. You could search if you remember the barkeeper's name or a partial string of his name, if you remember like the location or the session number, and so your memory isn't going to be exact and perfect for you to be able to pull this out in a kind of a literal way. But instead, in Campaign Logger, you can just create things and write things and connect them and then bring them back regardless of kind of the hook that you remember where and what that information was. I got that from Evernote, from using Evernote for a while. Once you master the searches, the different kind of search codes that it has, it's very easy to bring back information. You never have to have this perfect memory of where you stored it, how you stored it, and what exactly this thing is called. So so that's fantastic about the app, I think. Mm-hmm. Basically, if you have a notepad open or text edit, plain text editor, that can contain any genre. It means that it's not going to be customized to your genre, so it's not going to have a galactic wallpaper background is in the tool and the theme and whatnot, but it means that you can, in one moment, you can write fantasy stuff, you can open a new file, and you can write science fiction stuff. And so Campaign Logger is the same way. The caveat, or I don't know, a benefit though, is that Campaign Logger has generators and custom generators. So you can just create your own lists of stuff and then have lists work with each other so that you can have like Mad Lib type of generators. And then when you're stuck in the game for a name or a plot hook or a location, then you can just use a generator. It automatically gives you an option. You can re-roll until satisfied, and it automatically inserts it into your log entry. The generators that come out of the box with the app are fantasy oriented, but because it also allows you to create your own, you could create your own science fiction one, vampire one, modern one, historical one. So the advantage is you're not constricted by any kind of, or constrained by any specific genre. But if you want something that's very, very genre enabled, then you're going to need to do a little bit of setup work for yourself, or just understand the genre yourself, so then your notes are the way that you want them for that. So I don't know if that explains it correctly. Let me know if it doesn't, but yeah, that's my thought on that.
No, it does. It sounds like it can pretty much work for anything you want, even the most niche sort of genre you could possibly think of, which is great. So
let me give an example. I just thought of one.
Sure.
So if you have a mapping tool, the mapping tool might give you a fantasy set, a library of assets like icons and images and whatnot done in fantasy, and it might have a science fiction one. And when you use those, then you're instantly able to build fantasy maps or science fiction maps. But what we offer is just a universal set of tools. So it accommodates any genre, but it is not like locked and hard-coded into a genre. So if you need help with genre stuff, maybe the app is not for you. You need to do a little bit more research, and then you could bring your genre knowledge into the app. But otherwise, it's universal in that it's just got plain symbols as a metaphor of mapping that you could use for any kind of map and genre.
Okay, but one thing I do have sort of a query about your famous hat, your NPC hat.
Oh yeah.
So why do you wear that? I mean, do you think of yourself as an NPC? Is it a bit of an existential thing, or is it just Is it just something you picked up one day?
That's an interesting question. I've never thought about the existentialism or nihilism about being an NPC in real life. But I wore the hat. So taking a step back, I think one of the pillars of a fantastic campaign is having NPCs. You can put NPCs into any setting. It can be in deep dungeon crawls, in the wilderness, and in civilization. So you can always use NPCs. And then as a tool for great campaigns, NPCs offer GMs a ton of options. They can offer clues. They can ask thought-provoking questions for the characters. They can get the characters into trouble. You can develop the character backgrounds for better player engagement because of meaningful story relationships, and they can do all kinds of things. They're almost like John cannot insert himself physically into the game, unlike the old D&D cartoon from the 1980s, where the dungeon master could actually appear in front of the characters. So my best proxy for that is NPCs. I can use magic items, I can use plots, I can use locations, but all of those things are static. But an NPC is this dynamic game element that I can then use as my voice in the game, or to guide the players, or just to interact with the players in different ways. So therefore, when I was shopping online, and I don't remember the site, I saw an NPC hat, and so I ordered it. And then I started signing off my newsletter as your NPC, or your favorite NPC. Mm-hmm. Sort of in the way that I think, I believe, I like providing this service to game masters, the role-playing tips exchange and whatnot, and helping game masters be better. So I just feel sometimes like I'm an NPC in service to the game master to help them with their campaigns. I don't know if that's existential or not, but that's sort of why I continue to wear it. If it's famous, then maybe I should change my my garb. I don't want to be recognized in the street and then run down and have dice thrown at me by angry players. So.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks very much for your time today, John. One last question, really. If people want to either sign up to your weekly newsletter to get tips, or if they want to check out any of your other products, apart from Campaign Logger, which, of course, again, we're giving away today, where should they go?
Yeah, well, thanks again for the setup. Appreciate it. So if you want to become, I feel, a better game master, and you want to learn from your peers and have this body of ideas hit your inbox each week, then if you go to roleplayingtips.com, there's a sign-up link. I'm also giving away a few tools which I think are pretty good. One is, you mentioned already, is a NPC tracker PDF. Another one is a campaign tracker PDF, which allows you, which kind of prompts you in how to organize your campaign. You can print it out, fill in the boxes, or just use it as kind of ideas on how to be a bit more of an organized game master. And I'm also giving away a brand new book that I've released, which is version 2 of the 5-Room Dungeons Guide, the ultimate guide to 5-Room Dungeons. It's almost 400 pages, and it is all of the writing that I've done about 5-Room Dungeons, all the permutations, the ways to use 5-Room Dungeons to create mysteries and other types of plots. And then there's the original. When I first came up with the idea of 5-Room Dungeons as like a quick hack to make content for sessions, I reached out to the Role Playing Tips newsletter subscriber base, and I said, hey, give me some examples of this technique in use. And so there was a bit of contest involved, and I got a whole bunch of entries, and I distilled down to my favorite entries, and I was left with 88 example 5-Room Dungeons that were made from GMs around the world from all of their different perspectives and game systems and rules and stuff. So that's part of the book, and then on top of that is a few chapters on how to on adventure design. Anyways, I'm giving that away for free for anyone who wants to try out the Role Playing Tips newsletter and get GM tips in their inbox. So you go to roleplayingtips.com and find 5-Room Dungeons or any of the campaign NPC trackers. If you sign up for that, you'll also be subscribed to the newsletter.
Brilliant. Awesome. Thanks then very much for your time again, John, and thanks so much for sponsoring us this year at Con+2 once again.
Yeah, no worries. It's a good thing for gaming. I love it. Hi, my name is John Four. I am the publisher of roleplayingtips.com, a website that helps game masters have more fun at every game. Now in its 20th year, and I am happy to be a sponsor of this convention, and I encourage you to support Butterfly Project, which helps kids, underprivileged kids, in Africa learn how to cope with life and deal with life through the medium of role-playing games and gaming, teaching them leadership skills and all the things that all the benefits that we receive by being game masters and being involved in this awesome hobby. So thank you for your support and for attending the con.